Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to all attendees. A link will be included in a follow-up email tomorrow by tomorrow afternoon. Also, if you have any questions for our speakers throughout today's webinar, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box. You can find that on the right-hand side of your screen. There's a bubble with a question mark, and you can submit your questions in there. We'll try to get to as many as we can within the hour. And now I will turn it over to Tony to kick off today's webinar.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for the introduction. So hi, everyone, and welcome to this NCSA webinar. And it's being partnered today with ESET and the National Network to End Domestic Violence, where we're going to be taking a deep dive into the specific issue of stalkerware and how technology is facilitating domestic violence. So I'm Tony Anscombe, and I'm a board member of the NCSA. I'm also the Chief Security Evangelist at ESET, a cybersecurity company. So as Jen mentioned, at any time during the discussion, if you want to submit a question, please do so as we go through, and as we talk to the panelists, if I can bring those questions into the conversation, I will do, or we'll try and get to them at the end. So on our webinar today, I'm joined by two incredible speakers. Audace Garnett, who is a technology safety specialist and is here representing the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and Lucas Stefanko, an experienced malware researcher who gets hands-on with this stalkerware apps. With a background and focus on Android malware, Lucas has more than 9 years of experience in analyzing malware of this type and engages in many public awareness initiatives discussing mobile threats and app vulnerabilities. So, and just a call out, he's also speaking at RSA, a security conference in May on this particular topic. So before we hear from our panelists, I want to take a moment just to reflect on the seriousness of the topic we're talking about. So early in the pandemic, there were concerns of increased levels of domestic violence due to the confinement of lockdowns. And just to give you some stats that are out there, in China, there were reports that domestic violence tripled from February 2019 to 2020. And according to the United Nations, reports of abuse rose 30% in France, 25% in Argentina, and similar number between 25 and 35% around the globe. If we bring that closer to home, here in the US, the Portland Police Bureau recorded a 22% increase in arrests related to domestic violence. So the trend unfortunately showed increases similar to that across the country. Now, today we're going to take that deep dive into the role that technology plays in domestic violence, the tools, apps, programs that an abuser may use to monitor their victim. And the technology is typically known as either spyware or stalkerware. Now, in 2020, according to statistics from Kaspersky Labs, about 53,000 mobile users were victims of stalkerware. And stalkerware is a form of monitoring software, and we're going to actually get a demo of that in just a moment from Lukasz to understand what it can do. But it's looking at the device's data, the location data, calls, logs, messages, etc. So actually, Lukasz, I'm going to hand the baton to you here and ask you to show us, so to set the scene for this discussion, show us in a demo actually what this software looks like.
Hello there, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Tony, for a nice introduction. Right now, I would like to show you two video demonstrations on Stalkerware and how it actually works. So let me quickly explain what is happening here. In this video, I'll demonstrate how Stalkerware can access WhatsApp messages, received WhatsApp messages from victim's smartphone even before the actual victim sees them. What we see in the background, there is a laptop where Stalker is logged in. This is admin console of the Stalker. Through this console, Stalker controls the victim's device, where Stalkerware is already installed. Is a device on the left, and on the right side we see a smartphone of a third person that will just send a message to victim through WhatsApp. In this case, I'm also attacker and the victim. Victim receives a message, and the attacker right now can see what type of message it was, who sent that, and the actual text of the message, even before the victim clicks on that. Here's another video where I would like to demonstrate the power of actual Stalkerware app, where Stalker can remotely restrict access to a victim's smartphone. What we see in here, there's a laptop where me, again, as the stalker, this is an admin console where from I control the victim's smartphone. This is the smartphone of the victim. So let me unlock my device using a PIN, lock screen protected PIN 1234. And right now, Stalker can remotely change the PIN to 5555. And this happens within seconds. Old PIN, it's not working. We have to use the new one. These were actually two cases where a stalker can remotely spy and control the victim's device without her knowledge.
So thank you, Lukasz. Somewhat shocking, and you know, just to add to your demo there, I think the one thing that my takeaway from that is, if I look at the WhatsApp example, is because WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted, we kind of make the assumption that nobody's going to see what's happening in our WhatsApp. So that shows the true power of Stalkerware. So Audace, I'd like to bring you in if we can, and have you explain the intersection between technology and domestic violence. Now, just for the listeners out there, Audace has had a few technology issues and has some bandwidth issues, so she's joining us purely by phone. So Audace, maybe you could give some background there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. As Tony mentioned, my name is Audace Garnett, and I'm a technology safety specialist with the National Network to End Domestic Violence. I'm a part of a wonderful team and project called SafetyNet, and our focus is to help harness technology to support survivors. And on our team, we look at how technology intersects with abuse, privacy, and safety. And this can often include how technology can be misused as a tactic of abuse, but also importantly, how survivors can use technology strategically in their lives. Before I answer the question, I just want to clarify that when I use the term survivor, I am speaking of someone that has experienced intimate partner violence, stalking, sexual violence, or online harassment. I also use victim and survivor interchangeably. So when we're talking about technology-facilitated abuse, this is just one aspect of the violence a survivor may experience. It's important for us to remember that stalking, harassment, threats, shaming, monitoring, surveillance, and impersonation are all old behaviors of power and control, and has been happening before technology has evolved to what it is today. So with that intersection of tech and abuse, technology has become so interwoven into our lives, from how we bank, how we shop, how we monitor our health, the way we travel, how we communicate, and so much more. In fact, the very same ways that you and I use technology throughout our day are the same ways that survivors use technology. And abusers can misuse that same technology to monitor a survivor's location, isolate them, and control who they communicate with. Abusers can damage a device, harass survivors online, impersonate them through social media platforms, hack into their bank accounts because they know the password to the bank account, and so much more. And these tactics are all a part of the power and control dynamic. Again, remember, these are new tools, but these are old behaviors that abusers are using, and this can have a harmful impact on the life of a survivor. But some trends that we've been seeing in our work since the pandemic is a significant increase of stalkerware. We've heard from security companies like Norton and Kaspersky that there has been an uptick in monitoring. And NNEDV also conducted a national needs assessment in December 2020, surveying about 1,000 victim service providers and those working in the legal system to learn more about the types of tech abuse that they were hearing about from survivors. throughout the pandemic. And most respondents reported that there's been an increase in every type of tech abuse. So everyone is seeing an increase. And because of the pandemic and lockdown, abusers may now have increased access to a survivor's device because they're at home more often, or it may be that the survivor is a frontline worker and is away from their home for longer hours, and the abuser will use this as a way to monitor and exert coercive control over a survivor. Yeah.
So thank you for that, Audace, and hopefully that sets some serious scene on the seriousness of this subject. So Lucas, I mean, how do these apps become available for download? Because you would make the assumption these don't appear in standard app stores, but maybe you could enlighten us.
Yeah, as I said, these apps are not available on any of the app stores. These apps are actually accessible for two main platforms. Either we talk about iOS or Android, but there are differences. If we talk about iOS, it's a bit more difficult to download and actually install that on iOS, since such a device needs to be either jailbroken, which is not that easy, that simple, or Stalker needs to have iCloud credentials. Because of that, it's not that simple to infect such smartphone with Stalkerware. Contrary, on Android, these apps are available on dozens of websites that appears to be legitimate. However, they are not. Stalker, what all he needs is just download the application into his smartphone and install that. And this happens within 2, maybe 3 minutes, and it's done. Device is compromised.
And what about PCs and Macs? I mean, does it translate across from mobile to desktop devices?
Stalkerware are popular on all the platforms, I would say, including PCs and Macs. However, they are more prevalent on mobile platforms, and the reason is obvious. We carry more private data in our pockets, and Stalkerware is interested about than we have in our computers. So they're more prevalent on our smartphones.
Right, but basically no device is out of the reach of unfortunately the stalker in this instance. So
definitely,
I mean, these apps are designed to be hidden from victims so that they're unaware of the software that the software is monitoring their every action. So what should a victim look for to indicate the use of this malware?
It's really hard to identify the steps or the signs that smartphone is infected. However, there are some ways to identify that, such as battery drains faster, there's more internet consumption, and some weird things happening, such as GPS, Wi-Fi, or 4G, 5G data being enabled or disabled just by itself, or found received text messages that doesn't make sense, such as get GPS, retrieve SMS, make call, things like that. These are actually commands received from Stalker. These are SMS commands, and not all the Stalkerware actually clears that out, including finding pictures, screenshots, audio recording on device that was not done by the person, by the victim. These are the signs that something is happening with our smartphone.
Okay, and I particularly use the term malware there, Lukasz. I mean, is that how we would designate Stalkerware?
There's a thin line. I believe we could call it a malware, since it does harm. It extracts all the possible information, private information from the smartphone, and sends it to another server. It's hidden from a user view. It's hard to identify that using manual analysis. So I would say it has really close to malware. So yeah.
Okay, so So the victim unfortunately has this malware on their phone. So if somebody suspects they have somebody that's installed Stalkerware and it's being used to track them, or Dace, what might be some of the actions or steps that victim could take? Well, Dace, we can't hear you. I don't know whether you're muted.
Okay, I was muted. I'm so sorry about that. So some of the steps that a victim could take. Well, let me start out by saying that domestic violence affects every community, and it doesn't matter what your race, class, gender, sexual orientation, or level of education is. Anyone can be impacted by this issue. So if a survivor detects that there is stalkerware on their device, we say safety first. And survivors know their lives best and what safety looks like because they've been navigating their situation on their own for a period of time. People often have a knee-jerk reaction and may say, why don't they just remove it off of their device? Well, that may not be the safest thing for a survivor to do. Before removing the spyware, it's important to consider safety because the harassment and violence from the abuser may escalate if they suspect that the survivor is cutting off their access. So it's important for survivors to think through their safety and how they can continue to protect themselves and their families. And that can mean connecting with a domestic violence advocate and connecting with them, of course, on a device that is not compromised. And an advocate can provide them with the support that they need to further help them safety plan. Survivors can contact their national domestic violence hotline, where they can then be connected to a local program in or outside of their community. And there are other ways to respond, but we suggest always putting safety first. Lastly, let me mention that there are many barriers that prevent survivors from leaving an abusive relationship. And one of the most common barriers is fear. We always have to keep that in mind. Everyone's path is going to be different. Everyone is not going to be ready to leave an abusive situation today or be ready to file for an order of protection or report an incident to law enforcement. So we have to always keep that in mind when we're talking about, steps that survivors should take.
Okay, when you say you go to the helpline, I mean, where can somebody go and find additional details?
Yes, so that depends on where you're located in the world today. In the United States, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and you will be connected to an advocate who will then, ask you if you're safe and, specifically ask you where you're located, and they will then provide you with the information that you're looking for, whether it's counseling, case management, safety planning, services and support. They will then provide you with that information.
All right, thank you. And the NCSA
Sure.
has kindly put up a tip sheet on the website that has some further details on if you suspect you are being a victim, on some of the steps you can take and where you might go to report this. So, Lucas, if somebody believes they are a victim of stalkerware, how can they determine? Well, one, it's installed. I think we've already covered, but more importantly, if they are in that position or they've got themselves to the stage where actually they're ready to uninstall it, how would they do that? And I think you may have another demo lined up to help us understand that.
Yes, I prepared one more demo for that. There are actually two ways how to do that, either manually or automatically. And right now I would like to show you how this can be done manually. It means to identify some bad application and then how to get rid of it. So first thing to do is to go to settings and scroll down until you see apps or app managers, depends on your system. This is Android smartphone, and search for apps that have weird looking name, system looking name and icon. Now maybe the first thing that pops in your mind, what if this application system service, what if this app is actual system application and not just Stalkerware? Well, if this would be system application, you cannot remove it. And in this case, we see that there is a uninstall button, not grayed out. It means that actually it would allow us uninstall it. If we check the app permissions, We see that they are intrusive. They request access to camera, to calendar, to location, to text messages, to storage. And I'm not cool with such app being installed. Now, if I hit uninstall, I can't do that. Stalker has a prevention mechanism that prevents the victim to uninstall the Stalkerware. So what to do next? We have to go back to settings, scroll down to accessibility services, and search the same name of the app in enabled accessibility services. We see there is one, and we have to disable that first. Because of accessibility, Stalkerware can make actions on behalf of the victim. It means make clicks and restrict, for example, uninstall itself. Now let me go back to system service, and right now we are able to uninstall that. But first we have to disable device administrator. That's the way how we can get rid of the Stalkerware manually.
So that's actually fascinating to see that the accessibility services are used to actually protect the Stalkerware app, and I think that shows that the app themselves tried to protect themselves from being uninstalled, which is even sneakier. So, I mean, what about? So we've talked about the victim, and we've talked about somebody who suspects they may have Stalkerware on their device and how to remove it. But what about protecting yourself proactively to make sure that this never gets installed to start with?
Let me go back quickly to accessibility services. I forgot to tell that using this technique, I have seen only in a malware. No legitimate application ever used such technique to prevent uninstalling itself. So we see that the line is thin, and we can actually tell based on the video, based on the functionality, that, well, it's pretty close if it's not a malware by itself. And if we're talking about the prevention tips, there are some. The first one, I would say the first rule is to have enabled lock screen. It means PIN or password protected smartphone to restrict access by someone else. To make, of course, the PIN should not be something simple like 4 zeros or 1, 2, 3, 4, as you saw in my video. It cannot be that simple. And if you believe that possible stalkerware or someone else accessed your device, I would suggest to have already installed some trustworthy security solution, antivirus, you might call it that way, that would detect such behavior, such app being installed, and informs the victim, notifies, so the victim knows that there is a bad app, and either decides to remove it or decides to don't, for example, perform calls from that smartphone, don't send messages, and to be aware that she is being monitored.
Or he. Yeah, I'm sure Stalkerware is not limited to any specific gender, unfortunately. And I think, Audace, I think you mentioned earlier on the point at which somebody may wish to uninstall something, I think is dependent upon their situation, and really getting advice on when might be the right moment is probably a good idea. So, but if any of us know somebody that is a victim, Audace, what would be the best way that we could actually support somebody? I mean, if somebody reaches out to any of us, for example, on this particular topic, what's the best way that we could actually provide them the support needed?
Thank you for asking that question. A couple of things. I think that we should first start by listening and believing them, believing their story, because quite often we hear from survivors that reach out to us for technical assistance that no one believes what they're experiencing, because it's kind of unbelievable, right? How could this person be remotely listening to what is going on or what's happening on your device? So I think that that's the first thing, to just believe what they're saying. I also think that we should not minimize what they are experiencing and how they're being impacted by it. Just because it's not a physical injury or a bruise, the long-lasting impact that technology abuse can have on a person's life is just as harmful and challenging to get through. So support is important as well, and making sure that you're not placing any conditions on your relationship, such as if you don't leave that person, we can't help you. Remember always that they may not be ready to leave and it may not be safe to do so. So providing them with, those 3 things I think is really important.
Okay, and I have maybe a probing question here of now, one of the things that I've learned in ahead of doing some research for this webinar is that actually stalkerware in this nature is a local law enforcement issue. So, Audace, in your experience, if somebody did contact the local law enforcement, are they actually geared up to support or help the person? Because this sounds like a technology issue, and sometimes I wonder whether my local sheriff would be the person to help me out. But in your general experience, can they help?
Well, that may vary. We are connected to a lot of great law enforcement at National Network to End Domestic Violence. It depends on what jurisdiction you're in. Some law enforcement agencies do not have the tools or the capacity or availability to, investigate these types of situations. So it depends. And I just often say, just contact SafetyNet and we could, help you walk through the steps. But we oftentimes see that people are turned away or either not believed. And sometimes it will take an advocate stepping in saying, hey, like, I've been working with this person. This is what they're experiencing. Hear them out. This is what it is. Sometimes it just takes someone to back up what this person is saying to get others to listen. So it may vary. It varies from what we see.
Okay, and the big question here is we have a piece of technology that really shouldn't exist, because it's providing a tool to a stalker against their victim and interfering in their life in while it's a non-physical way, as you said just a moment ago, Audace. It's to me the abuse actually is no different. How do we go about making this a thing of the past? Is there, how do we actually put this into history?
Wow. Tony, I wish I knew that answer. I wish that there was a cut and dry and easy answer to that question, but I'd say that we can start out by holding abusers accountable for their tech misuse, right? I think lawyers and law enforcement need to become a lot more creative, when it comes to prosecuting and charging them with certain crimes, such as stalking, right? So they need to figure out ways to, be creative within, the courtroom or whatever. But I think conversations such as this, right, bringing everybody to the table to have these conversations, because sometimes, these sectors don't meet. So we need to work together and create products also that don't cause any harm, but building partnerships between tech companies and victim service organizations is key, because this is an issue that we all can work together on. And we already have a perfect example of that. We have the Stalkerware Coalition, which is comprised of many security companies and domestic violence organizations from around the world who are working together to get ahead of this issue. And you all can learn more about the coalition at stopstalkerware.org. There's a lot of really great information on that platform. You can also find out more about SafetyNet at techsafety.org. We have a lot of great resources and information that you all can share, and just start having this conversation more often with family, friends, people in your community, so that they can understand that this is happening and how easily accessible it is. So that's my couple of points I wanted to share around.
As a malware researcher, Lukasz, how do you think we push this into history?
From my point of view, it's extremely difficult. We can only push that and spread the awareness among the community, make the people aware what are the ways, what are the possibilities, and just trying to make people aware. But it's not that easy for us from our side to make the thing of the past.
Yeah, unfortunately, these apps are abusing the device that we have in our pocket, isn't it? Which is the challenge. And so, some apps require legitimately those permissions. So, unfortunately, these apps are abusing those permissions. But so you've got a presentation coming up at RSA, and I'm going to cheekily ask you here, are you going to share something about that presentation? Give us that teaser of why we might want to come and listen and what you're presenting there. Because I know RSA have these strict guidelines, don't they, that you're not allowed to present anywhere else or disclose anywhere else first, but maybe you could share something.
Well, definitely I shouldn't, but yes, I will present security problems of Android Stalkerware apps, and I was trying to make a point, new aspect, new point of view on Android Stalkerware to identify security issues and security problems, since if we consider that these apps, these Stalkerware, is intrusive and has access, transmits and transforms and stores all the personal information more than any app we have installed in our smartphone right now. And we want to find out, well, is it secure? Do they have vulnerabilities? Can this be misused by someone else? And we actually did, we analyzed the dozens of Android Stalkerware and malware manually, and we identified over 100 security problems in these apps, which should, in the end, create a clear picture on the problem, on the topic, not just this is immoral and ethical to use that, but trying to reach potential future clients of stalkers that might consider using the software, using the app, that if they try to do that, data of their spouses, of theirs as well, might be at risk. It might be all revealed on the internet, for example. But more details about the topic, about the issues, about the apps, you can find out at RSA.
Actually, I think you raise a really interesting comment there, that some other cyber criminal may abuse the stalkerware itself to start doing data collection, and I think that also adds to the seriousness of an app that has this type of permissions, that potentially it becomes a much wider issue that your data may end up elsewhere as well. So it's super interesting. So Jen, I'm going to bring you back in here and ask you whether our audience have shared any interesting questions.
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of questions about how Stalkerware is installed in the first place. Do abusers need physical access to a device, or can it be installed remotely?
I believe I can answer the question. Stalker always needs to have physical access to a smartphone to install the Stalkerware on a device. It cannot be done remotely, and this is also explicitly explained in install instructions during my research, that a stalker always needs to be in possession of a smartphone.
Yes, and I'd like to also add, yes, they definitely need to have physical access to the device to download the software, and that could be done by, knowing what the survivor's passcode is. Remember, this is a person that you're intimate with, so they probably know your passcode, right? But this can also be done by physical force, right? Forcing that person to unlock their device. We've heard of cases where traffickers, gift cell phone devices to, the person that they're going to exploit so that they can monitor them as well. So it can be a gift that's already downloaded onto that device that they're, giving that person.
Great, and we have another question here about antivirus software. Can that be used to find or remove stalkerware?
Yes, definitely. Trustworthy, reliable, up-to-date antivirus can identify stalkerware being installed or attempts of being installed, and then notifies the user and can remove that on the victim's behalf. So yes.
Great, and we have another question. So I know we talked about it. It needs to be, the abuser needs physical access to the device, but some people are also asking if if it's possible for an abuser to send a link to a survivor to download and trick them into downloading some sort of surveillance malware. Have you heard of that happening?
This is a more malware kind of way of exploiting a victim, since in all cases I have analyzed during my research, Stalkerware app that after first launch needs to be set up. It means that Stalker needs to actually, for example, log in to sync the smartphone with the server or admin console, so the smartphone knows where to send the data, and set up what the stalker is interested about, allow all the permissions. So this needs to be done by someone, the initial setup of the malware, of the stalkerware.
Great, and we also have a few questions about laptops. So you mentioned how this is most commonly seen on smartphones, but if something does get installed onto a laptop, are there ways to detect that?
Definitely they are. The same way, I would say, as on Android or mobile platform. Just install some antivirus or security solution that would identify that scans all the time if a new app, new stalkerware, new malware being somehow transferred to a laptop. So this is the easiest and automatic solution to this problem.
Great, and then one other question on here, I guess, how easily accessible are these apps? Can they be downloaded for free? Do abusers have to kind of look for and pay for it, like certain software?
They are actually really easy, accessible through search engines. They are not on any dark webs or deep webs. They are actually on the first Google search pages, and there are dozens. Some of them even have paid advertisement, paid PR articles, stuff like that. Really simple, really easy to download, in my opinion. And the goal of the stalkerware is to generate revenue. Most of them are paid, and if not paid, then there's some basic functionality which is for free, and for additional, such as spying on social media, taking pictures, recording phone calls, these are paid features. But there's no problem to download and use free Stalkerware app.
And then we have a few other questions about backed up data and factory resets. Say if a survivor backs up their data and gets a new phone, is it possible that they might be backing up that stalkerware, that app, and then they're uploading it onto a new phone?
It depends on what's the way how to back up data. If the backup contains backing up also all the installed applications, then yes, it would, since we were transferring everything and moving that to another smartphone. And I believe this doesn't create or make any solutions, since Stalkerware will be moved to a new smartphone. However, not sure about that, but I think that such Stalkerware would need to be set up once again, since it is on a new smartphone. It needs to be set up and synchronized with the Stalkerware account on the server, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But if we back up only data, if we back up only data, no apps, then the Stalkerware will be not present on your smartphone.
And then how can updating your either Android or iOS devices help? Like if you perform a system update, can that help prevent stalkerware?
It doesn't prevent stalkerware per se, since it might prevent exploiting some security issues, but I haven't seen stalkerware actually exploiting these issues. So it's always good to have up-to-date system, definitely, but it doesn't prevent stalkerware being removed or not being installed.
And we have another question here. How do these apps compare to the parental type apps that are used for, kind of, monitoring children's mobile devices? Are they different, or are they virtually the same kind of app?
There is a huge difference. Since online, these Stalkerware actually promote themselves as kid monitoring applications or parenting apps or even employee monitoring apps, but they are not. They are just kind of shady way how to hide that they are spouseware, they are Stalkerware. And the difference, monitoring, parenting, legit applications, you can find them on Google Play Store. If you are going for them, do that, go on Play Store and search for reliable parenting app. The difference is that the kid, for example, knows that there is such app installed. He can see that. He knows there is a parenting app. And the purpose of such app is to create rules to, for example, restrict access to adult content, limit time online, limit time on social media, on games. These rules, contrary on Stalkerware, these rules cannot be created. Stalkerware just extracts all data, can record calls, take pictures, whatever, and sends them away. And the Stalkerware is hidden from the victim's view.
And also, we have some questions about how do these apps compare to mobile device management products that are used in corporate environments or by employers?
I would say, I would say the same way, since many of these Stalkerwares not only promote, as I said before, as children monitoring apps, but also employee monitoring apps. I wouldn't use them. There are many legit ones, again, on Play Store, which I would advise to download to use on smartphones of your employees. That was the question. It's the same way, again, these apps are visible to user. They know that that's the app there. These apps shouldn't care about, for example, received text messages, about their communication, conversation on your EM apps, instant messaging applications, or about your social media, where Stalkerware does care about that.
I mean, maybe I can add something there, Jen, as well about, if you look at a lot of the MDM type solutions, so the corporate management of mobile devices, typically they only manage the apps that belong to the corporate. So, if I install email on my phone that has access to my company email, then I may have to put MDM software on there, but it only has control over the apps that are belonging to the company. In effect, it creates a siloed portal of apps, if that's a good description of it, that the company can then manage. So if my device is lost, I can manage deleting the device myself, but the company can also manage deleting their piece that's on my device if they so choose. So I think there is somewhat different. I think that's a very legitimate use in a corporate to protect their data, certainly data or customer data.
Another question here. So just how much on a device can an abuser control besides just looking at what the survivor is doing on their device? Can the abuser turn on the camera or microphone without the user's knowledge?
So the question is about the capabilities of what are the capabilities. Actually, you can perform any actions that you can imagine, from recording surrounding audio, recording phone calls, taking photos, pictures, screenshots from chat or communication from social media. It can even live stream from a smartphone, video and audio without knowledge of the victim. There is also one of the things I was researching, and it will be presented at RSA, where this was possible and the victim has no idea something like that is actually happening on a smartphone. Even sending text messages, VNC to device, anything imaginable.
And we also have a few questions here. Just if our panelists can repeat some of the resources they've shared. A lot of people are interested in sharing any materials, websites with their friends and family. I'll just chime in first and say that NCSA has released a tip sheet on Stalkerware, which we will include in our follow-up email to everybody to download, and we will include other links as well. But it would be great if our panelists could just share some of those resources that they've mentioned for our attendees to share with their friends and family.
Sure. The resources that I shared was the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I do not have the phone number at hand, but that is the general phone number that you want to call so that you can get state-specific services for survivors. I also mentioned techsafety.org, which is our website. We have a lot of toolkits there. We have a survivor toolkit where you can find lots more resources around safety planning and various other things. We're also hosting our virtual technology summit, where we take a really deep dive around the intersection around technology and abuse. And that will be held July 19th to the 22nd. You can find out more about that at techsafety.org. And I also mentioned the coalition of Stalkerware, and that website is stopstalkerware.org. And you can reach us, the Safety Net team, at safetynet@nnedv.org. Thank you.
So let me just add, and Lucas, if I miss anything, please feel free to cut in afterwards. We have a research site called welivesecurity.com where you'll find a lot of excellent tips around general online safety, but specific research about Stalkerware is published there as well. And any research, I'm sure there's, after the RSA conference, there'll be additional details on the presentation that's being given. And Jen, it would be wrong for me as a board member of NCSA not to actually shout out that people should go to Stay Safe Online as well. And that's where the tip sheet would be found. And obviously there's a blog there that covers topics of this type on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you, Tony. And we will include all of these links and resources and events in a follow-up email. We will also include a recording of this webinar.
Right, with that, can I then suggest we close out? And I'd like to bring back our two panelists actually and ask them if they've got any closing comments that they'd like to add on this particular topic before we thank the audience and the NCSA.
I think I said a mouthful. I just like to wish everyone peace, love, and safety.
Yeah, similar. Stay safe, be vigilant, and take care of yourself.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Jen from and the NCSA for hosting this webinar. It's an important, serious topic, and it's great to create that awareness. I'd like to thank you, the attendees, for attending, and our prestigious speakers, Audace and Lukash, for sharing the expert advice. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much.